Today I wanted to share some of the pros and cons of using psychedelics in its therapeutic sense. So we're not going to be talking about the recreational use case of psychedelics, which is entirely different. And before we start, I do want to make a note that I don't necessarily think psychedelic therapy is good for everyone. It does come with risks. So if you're going to embark on a psychedelic journey, make sure you do your homework. Make sure you do your due diligence. Make sure you're medically cleared, because there can be situations where more harm is caused than good. And I've been doing psychedelics and using psychedelics as a therapy for about the past 4 years or so. And I've had a lot of great moments, but I've also had moments that aren't so great. I've made a lot of mistakes through the process. So I'm hoping that this video can shed light on the pros and cons, what to look out for. So if you do decide to use psychedelic therapy, which can be extremely powerful in a positive way, you can do it the right way the first time and not have to spend so much time trying to figure things out. So let's get into the pros of psychedelic therapy. The first thing is you feel like you get this total reset if you've done enough of it. So if you spent enough time with the psychedelics, you're going to reset your nervous system, reset your brain, reset your emotional body, reset your mental body, reconnect with spirit. So when you leave these psychedelic experiences, you just feel lit up. You feel like you're on fire. And that's one of the most beautiful things, especially if you've been feeling like crap for a while. Like, I feel so connected. I'm just so happy to be alive. So that's one of the most profound things that most of the psychedelics, at least the ones that I've participated with, have done for me. It's just like, wow, I feel so amazing. The second thing is that the psychedelics really do a lot in activating the brain, helping the brain heal, developing what's called neuroplasticity, which is malleability and flexibility within the brain, which allows you to change behavior really quickly. But like you probably can guess, you can either use that in a positive way or in a negative way, and I'll get to that in just a second. The third thing is you can have these really divine experiences. You can experience things outside of your normal day-to-day life. You can reconnect with things in this really magical, mystical way that can take your breath away, quite literally. So that's one of the amazing things about psychedelics too. It connects you with something much bigger than yourself. And the fourth thing that I think is really powerful about psychedelics is it can offer a new perspective on your patterns. You can almost see yourself from another person's perspective. And sometimes we don't love the way that looks. So it gives us the ability to witness it from another person's perspective, which can then create the motivation to make the necessary changes so we don't look that way anymore. So those are some of the pros. There's a lot more, but those are the big ones that I want to touch on for this. Now let's get into some of the cons of psychedelic medicine, because there is a lot to consider. So let's go back to the neuroplasticity, the malleability within the brain, as the first con if you don't treat that right. If you don't have a plan of how you're actually going to change your behavior, you're going to fall right back into old patterns. Think of it as like your brain's turned back into the brain of a little kid who's highly suggestible. If you don't have an action plan of how you're going to retrain and reprogram your brain, you're just going to fall back into old patterns, which is going to feel really disappointing because you felt so good for a while, then you find yourself getting magnetized back to old patterns. And it's like, God, what am I doing wrong? This just sucks. That's what I ended up doing after my first ayahuasca experience. I felt so good for like 3 months, but then I found myself being very similar to that version of me before I went and did the ayahuasca, and I felt very defeated after that. So that's something to consider. You use it or lose it type of thing. You have this flexibility. What do I want to wire in? The second thing that's kind of a con is you go to the jungle, for example. That's what I did with my first ayahuasca experience. And it creates this level of like, I'm already on a retreat. I'm connected with nature. I'm working with a shaman from an indigenous culture. The indigenous people don't necessarily understand the Western culture and all of the psyche issues that we have within Western culture. They don't understand that we have a job and we have this very indoor lifestyle. They're very connected with nature already. There's certain things that they don't have to think about in terms of integration. So they're amazing in the actual ceremony, but then you're kind of left to figure it out after the ceremony. You don't have someone helping you actually implement those insights from the jungle into your modern Western life. And this can leave you feeling like a fish out of water. It's like you were hugging trees in the jungle, and then you come back to your shitty job with your mean boss and your grumpy coworkers, and you're like, I just need to get the hell out of the US and back to the jungle. So it can create this idea of escapism. But in my opinion, most of us aren't here to escape. We're here to integrate the lessons into the reality that we chose to participate in. We're not here to run away from our problems, because wherever you go, there you are. So that's the other thing about the going somewhere and doing some really powerful medicine. If you don't have the help afterward is really 90% of the work. So that's the big issue with that. The other issue with psychedelics is you have a lot of people, especially when you're talking about psychedelics like ayahuasca, psilocybin, iboga, bufo, DMT, these really powerful psychedelics. You have people administering these things that really aren't that experienced. They've done it a bunch of times, but they're really not that experienced when it comes to facilitating. And so there's a lot that goes on within your subconscious, within your nervous system. It's a very, very powerful medicine. So you want to make sure that you're working with people that have been doing it for a long time, where it's been passed down in the lineage. Because if you don't, all sorts of things can happen that can cause your brain to get all screwy, your nervous system to get all screwy, and your life can really become a wreck if you don't take these things into consideration. The third thing that I would say, or fourth, I can't remember what number I'm on, is that some of these psychedelics are maybe a little bit too powerful to start with. Like, it's such a huge, like, your head's being blown off experience that it can take years to integrate all of the insights from those types of experiences. I find that more of a slower approach, an introductory approach into psychedelics while you're simultaneously making behavioral changes, is the best way to go into it. So then you can start seeing the results in your life. You don't have to totally derail everything, and you can build your confidence with the psychedelics. Like, hey, I'm good at taking the insights and applying them and integrating them into my life. And I think that's really important if you're just starting out, or if you've done them and are having a hard time in your life. There has to be this rhythm of you, yes, healing your brain, developing that neuroplasticity, but then grounding it with new behavioral modifications, new healthy habits. Because remember, if we anchor in those old habits again, nothing in our life is really going to change. So that's the approach that I recommend. So kind of summing all of this up, if you're going to partake in psychedelics and you haven't done it yet, or you're not having the experience, you're not getting the benefit from it yet, I recommend doing something that you can kind of work with bit by bit. So what we're actually offering in our clinic and with our patients is at-home psychedelic therapy combined with coaching, combined with lifestyle and behavioral modification, combined with environmental modification. So we kind of look at, okay, we're going to use the psychedelics to kind of reset our system, reset our nervous system, reset our brain, reset our mental body, our emotional body, help us connect more with our source energy, help us connect more with our spirit. We're going to do all of that with these psychedelics. We're going to use music. We're going to really accentuate these sessions, but then simultaneously we're going to make sure that we're changing our behavior. So we come back to the medicine, then we have homework. We actually go implement it. Then we come back to the medicine, then we have homework. And it's not these experiences that are just blowing your head off. They're experiences that absolutely can be divine and magical. There's some that can be more intense and emotional. It's all great, but we're defragmenting our system. We're coming back to like this whole person, and then from there, we're choosing the behaviors and the habits that support the life that we want to build. And I found that this is the most effective way to create long-term sustainable change, as opposed to just derailing your life and allowing you to go way down the spiritual rabbit hole and everything falls apart. So if you'd like to learn more about our process, please reach out. I know it can help you if you're someone who's willing to do the work, who's willing to make the necessary changes. Maybe you're aware of changes that you need to make, but you're just having the difficulty in creating the momentum and motivation to make these changes. If that's you, again, please reach out and we can see if you're a good fit. It might not be the best thing for you, but it doesn't hurt to reach out. So hopefully you found this helpful. Talk to you guys soon.